Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As we talked a little bit about yesterday, we talked about the healthcare industry and kind of the crisis it's facing right now, really escalating costs and how companies are trying to mitigate that cost using wellness programs. And Starbucks specifically, as you know, spends about $200 million on wellness or on healthcare insurance for their employees. And what's great is that they do offer insurance for all of their employees, part-time or full-time. But actually what that means is that you pay more for insurance than actual coffee, which is very surprising and obviously why you want to mitigate that cost, definitely. So a part of that is wellness programs. They have several different natures. All of them need to be voluntary for employees to join in or not join in. A way to really promote your wellness program is through incentives. One type of incentive is a positive reward-based participation incentive. You can also have negative penalizing employees for not participating in wellness programs, and then also attainment of goals in wellness programs. So depending on the different type of incentive, you can have more discounts on premiums, more rebates for your employees. It just depends on some of the ethical ramifications between what is the most fair for all of your employees. And to go more into detail on participation incentives in wellness programs, Yolanda's going to lead us in.
So we have, with participation incentives, we have positive and negative incentives. Positive incentives, like Jenny said, are gift cards, gym memberships, anything positive that helps the employee to get back, to go to the gym and get their healthcare needs taken care of. While negative incentives, they penalize employees. And so that creates an unethical ground for employees. For example, let's just say that corporate employees make an average of $80,000 a year versus frontline employees who make about $40,000. The person who's penalized, if both are penalized at the same time for not participating, the person who makes $40,000 is at a great disadvantage. And so it can be unethical, even though it is deemed legal to do that. And so Aaron will actually go into the implications of the ethical framework.
And I want to talk about also a third kind of incentive. There's a third level to these wellness incentive programs that is a new trend in lots of different industries. These are attainment incentives. So an insurance provider might look at a profile of a company and say, this company is, the triglyceride levels are too high, right? We can reduce these premiums by working on that factor. And by making an incentive that encourages people to take care of their wellness with the goal of reducing triglyceride levels, by laying that on top of both groups of employees, one is advantaged in doing that because they're already taking care of their health to a greater deal than the other. So for instance, the corporate employee that has a high annual salary and is able to afford childcare, so this employee can go to the gym without worrying about their children, right? That this employee is going to yoga classes and is able to afford healthy foods. It's an easier task for them to reduce their triglyceride levels, right? The frontline employee is automatically disadvantaged because they've got all these other concerns to worry about and they're scraping by on their paycheck from one to the next, right? So the attainment incentive is a higher level of pushing the responsibility for wellness down onto the employee themselves. So that outlines the three different types of wellness incentives and their impacts on employees. And thinking through this question ethically, we're considering how a wellness incentive impacts the stakeholders for our company, for Starbucks. We have lots of shareholders who want to see these incentives implemented because they're worried about these spiraling costs. We supply healthcare for everybody. We need to control that cost. So any incentive programs are benefits to them, surely, right? At least in the short term. For employees, it's not as clear cut. For corporate employees, any incentive program is an advantage to them because it rebates, essentially, their health insurance premiums. But the frontline employees are impacted differently with these different incentive regimes, right? So what we recommend is that Starbucks operate as usual, that they keep their voluntary wellness programs as they are, maybe they promote some voluntary participation incentives, time off at work for frontline employees to take care of their health, maybe some sponsored gym programs to stay fit, and those other sort of voluntary participation incentives are good for all employees. And we recommend that we comb through the wellness program definition and we chop out any reference to attainment incentives or the negative penalties for not participating. Those are the recommendations. Now, the reason we think that Starbucks should do this in particular is that we have an ethical company culture, that this is a selling point for us. So in the long term for shareholders, we need to grow our ethical culture, right? That goal will increase our share value to a greater degree than will mitigating the health insurance costs now. Because a selling point for us is we have well-treated employees who are those frontline faces that you see when you go and you buy your coffee. When I hand over the price tag for that coffee, I'm not actually paying for the coffee beans, right? That's the raw materials that go into this. What I'm paying for is that interaction and my cup of coffee. So I think a major selling point for our company is to maintain that ethical culture. And considering all of these stakeholders, we recommend tearing down the unethical incentives. So with that, there's no time for questions, but if you have any afterwards, we'll talk about this. I think it's reasonable and it makes sense. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.